A pack of hungry alligators and a handful of overconfident hunters sounds like the start of a bad joke, right? But you know what's even funnier? I left my family's ranch for a couple of hours just long enough for the neighborhood busybody to drag three strangers through my front gate, waving fake paperwork like she was the Queen of England. They all made a beeline for my granddad's old pond, clueless that it's home to creatures straight out of the Jurassic era. Next thing you know, there's mud flying, guns sinking, and Karen from the so-called HOA vanishing like a magician's rabbit. Honest to God, that's how my day started. So what do you think? Who's the real hunter here? My name's Jake Morrison, and 6 months ago I inherited 200 acres of Central Florida swamp from my grandfather, a place loaded with more secrets than any bank vault. I was barely scraping by, running side hustles in IT, living off coffee and panic, barely holding on between the property taxes and keeping the place standing. Grandpa had worked as a Florida game warden for 40 years, poured his whole soul into that land, but he died before I ever really understood why he called that pond the heart of the ranch. The only thing he ever said was that water's got special guardians, Jake. They were here before us and they'll be here after. Tuesday morning in March, I was stuck in a bank lobby getting denied for a home equity loan, staring at the bleak numbers in my hand. While I was getting rejected, Karen Whitfield was busy writing her own rules on my property. Never met her before, but she'd somehow convinced three hunters from Jacksonville, Wade Collins, Brett Jackson, and Rick Murphy, that she was queen of the Meadowbrook Estates HOA, giving out alligator hunting passes like she was handing out candy on Halloween. They each coughed up $500 for the privilege, thinking they were about to star in their own action movie. Minor detail: she skipped my ranch isn't abandoned, it's not a conservation area, and it definitely isn't open season. Karen was slick. Showed up with official-looking paperwork, HOA, letterhead signatures, even a property map with every fence, and of course the pond. What the hunters didn't know, and I sure as hell didn't, was that the pond held secrets my granddad never shared. Her map was so detailed it felt like she'd lived on the place. Only a few neighbors knew the land that well. Why did she want these men poking around the pond Grandpa warned me about? While Karen was orchestrating her little safari, I was still stuck in the bank when my phone started buzzing non-stop. It was Mrs. Rodriguez, my neighbor. On her third call, I finally picked up and she whispered, "Jake, there are men with guns on your property. I just heard shots from the back pasture." Suddenly, the whole day flipped upside down. I bolted out of the bank, sped back home, my mind racing with what-ifs. Grandpa always called this ranch sacred ground, a haven for wildlife, not a playground for thrill-seekers. I rolled in to find the front gate wide open, tire marks all over the place. Karen's rental sedan was parked under the old oak, but she was nowhere in sight. Sitting on her passenger seat, a stack of documents that looked official at a glance. Wildlife management forms, environmental assessments, all the bureaucratic nonsense you'd expect. But what made my stomach twist was a detailed hand-marked map showing the exact boundaries of the pond Grandpa always called the sanctuary. Someone had fed Karen info, someone who wanted those hunters right there. I heard shouting in the distance, except it wasn't the victorious yelling of men bagging a gator. It was higher pitched, the sound of panic. And you want to know something that'll chill your bones? The Florida swamp had gone silent. No birds, no frogs, not even the buzz of insects. Grandpa always said, when the swamp gets quiet, you run. I started running instead. I hit the clearing by the pond and just about stopped breathing. There were the three hunters scrambling up the limbs of an ancient cypress like kids escaping a rabid dog. Wade was hugging the trunk so hard he looked like he was ready to pass out. Brett's camo pants were torn and soaked, and Rick was dangling from a low branch with wild eyes staring down at the water. That's when I saw them, 6 sets of eyes, each the size of a billiard ball, barely poking above the surface. Monsters, every one of them. Not the usual 8-footers you see on TV, but giants 12, 14 feet long, jaws wide enough to swallow a cooler whole. Wade started screaming at me, "Call 911. That crazy lady said these were just regular gators. Brett was muttering prayers, and Rick looked ready to faint. Their rifles, expensive military grade, were scattered in the mud, forgotten the moment they realized nature always wins. For a split second, every one of those monster heads turned and looked at me. I felt this weird calm, like those eyes recognized me, like maybe Grandpa's words were more than just stories. Karen's footprints led straight to the edge of the pond and then just stopped. No struggle, no drag marks. Nothing but a line of prints that ended where the water began. Her car was still running under the tree, but the woman herself was gone, erased as if she never existed. It was almost poetic. I managed to talk the hunters down from the tree with a mix of bluffing and distraction, throwing chicken over the far bank, using a boat paddle to push them toward safety. They bolted the moment their boots hit dry land, swearing never to set foot in Florida again. Once they sped away, I was left staring at the pond, those ancient eyes still watching like sentinels. That night, I finally worked up the nerve to open Grandpa's old gun safe, the one I'd never touched since he passed. Inside was his service revolver and a manila envelope with my name. The truth hit me in a flood: 40 years of conservation records, details of a covert relocation project from the Everglades in the 70s, a secret population of breeding gators rescued when their habitats got bulldozed. The monsters in our pond weren't random, they were survivors, genetic arcs for the future, and Grandpa had sworn to keep them safe. Right then, Tank Rodriguez showed up, Mrs. Rodriguez's son, a retired sheriff's deputy, built like a bulldozer and loyal as they come. He'd known Grandpa since forever, and he wasted no time grilling me about the day. After I laid out the story, Karen's scam, the fake HOA, the hunters, the pond tank, nodded like none of it surprised him. "Your granddad was always guarding something out here," he said. "I just never knew what." That's when Tank pulled out his phone and showed me a video that would blow the lid off everything a kid named Tommy Chen, local wildlife vlogger, had caught the entire debacle on drone footage. 3 camo-clad hunters charging the pond, then running for their lives as a herd of ancient alligators exploded out of the water. The video had gone viral, over 50,000 views and counting. Problem was, the internet wasn't exactly sympathetic. People were calling for my head, saying I was running a backyard zoo. Worse, the footage caught Karen being picked up by a dark blue SUV, a man in sunglasses at the wheel. Not random at all, planned, professional. Tank ran the plate's Thornfield Development Group out of Orlando. Rick Thornfield, yeah, one of the hunters, but more than that, a developer with a reputation for snapping up distressed land on the cheap. That map Karen carried. It wasn't from Google Earth. Rick Thornfield used to be a game warden, same as Grandpa. Only Rick got fired back in the 90s, took bribes, sold inside info on endangered habitats to developers. Grandpa was the one who turned him in. The betrayal ran deep. Over the next day, Tank and I pieced together a nasty pattern. 3 other families in Central Florida had lost their land the same way: fake crises, wildlife incidents, a sudden drop in property values, then a quick sale to Thornfield. Sometimes tragedy followed. One farmer even took his own life. The pattern was sickening, and the setup on my land was textbook: create panic, manufacture evidence, force a sale, then cash in. But they'd miscalculated. See, the storm that hit next Hurricane Melissa ripped through my ranch like a freight train, smashing the dam on the sanctuary pond. 2 of Grandpa's gators got washed out into Boggy Creek, which runs through the heart of town. The news painted it as my fault, and Karen was right there on the morning broadcast, tears and all, selling herself as the hero who'd warned the authorities. She claimed I'd threatened her, lied to officials, endangered the public. Thing is, Tank and I were ready. Tommy's live-streamed drone footage proved the breach was a natural disaster, not my negligence. The story started shifting. People asked how the hunters got access, who approved the hunt, why a supposed HOA had authority on private land. Right on cue, Karen and Rick rolled back up in their SUV, wearing windbreakers and smug grins, ready to inspect the damage. They started planning fake vet records, dumping chemical containers by the pond, not realizing every move was caught on hidden cameras. Then Karen's phone rang, her lawyer grilling her about an insurance investigation into her late husband's death. Karen, thinking no one was listening, bragged about increasing his life insurance just before he accidentally died. Rick freaked out. The whole confession, every dirty secret was recorded. 3 days later, Karen strutted into the courthouse, briefcase in hand, ready to bury me with fake evidence. Judge Hendricks wasn't having it. Tank stood up, played the audio and video footage Karen and Rick caught planting evidence, admitting to everything from fraud to murder. The courtroom erupted. Karen melted down, screaming that the world owed her. Rick turned state's evidence, but still caught 15 years. Karen's looking at life behind bars. The fallout was sweet. Fish and Wildlife cleared my name, certified the ranch as a conservation sanctuary, and let me keep the mission alive. Tommy's YouTube channel blew up, 2 million subscribers, a documentary award, the works. Tank signed on as head of security. My neighbors rallied, volunteers showed up to help. The monsters in my pond became local legends, living proof of what real conservation means. Standing at the edge of the pond 6 months after it all began, I finally understood Grandpa's legacy. It wasn't just about land or even about the gators. It was about fighting for something bigger than yourself, refusing to let bullies and con artists win. The real predators aren't the alligators, they're the ones who prey on trust, hope, and the love families have for their land. If you made it this far, let me ask, who are the real monsters in your story, and what would you do if the world told you to give up? Share your thoughts below, because sometimes the smallest voice is the one that brings down the biggest beast.